Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's been quite some time, but in today's video I'm going to be reviewing Hakuouki 2020, the live action series. Now, Hakuouki is an anime that carries a lot of weight in the ultimate world. From visual novels to multiple anime seasons and movies, the stories of the Shinsengumi and their tragic supernatural fate has been told a dozen times. But in 2022, wow, gave us a fresh live action take starring Sabasu Sakiyama. Today we're going to break down the first 5 episodes and see how this version stacks up against the classical anime. Episodes 1 to 2 shows Chizuru running through the streets in the encounter with the Furies, which we see ultimately in the first 2 to 3 episodes of the anime series. In fact, I would say it's probably a good kind of copy and paste of episode 1. We start off where it always begins. Chizuru arrives in Kyoto disguised as a boy, searching for her father Kodo. Right away, this drama, this live-action series, establishes a much grittier tone than the anime. When she encounters the Furies, they just don't look like the styled vampires. They look like feral, terrifying monsters. The first 2 episodes focus heavily on Chizuru's acclimation to the Shinsengumi headquarters, while the anime often felt like a series of dating events. The drama leans into the tension of being a prisoner of war. You really feel the danger Chizuru is in before the captains like Hijikata and Saito start to trust her. In addition to that, one other thing I will say is that the pacing of the live action show is a lot more to the kind of meatier content of Hakuouki. They removed a lot of the filler and they just went straight into the events, which is going to follow up with episode 3 is a big one. This is the Ikemen incident. This is where the 2022 series shines. The choreography is grounded and visceral. There are no gravity-defying anime leaps here. It's tight, cramped, and bloody. We also get the introduction of the Onis, or demons, Chikage, Kazuma, Amagiri, and also we get the introduction of Shiranui. Now, this episode was actually quite interesting because we got to see in live action how they approach combat. And I gotta say, it was very impressive. I do think the anime has the upper hand because they can get away with more stuff because it's animation. Like when they tried to do some of the visual effects for Kazuma's powers, and then even some of the things like Shiranui, because we know that Shiranui is an Oni, so he can jump high, I think he can probably teleport, but some of those things weren't as well done, in my personal opinion, but it doesn't matter because we actually get to see a live-action Hakuouki form of content. And honestly, I would say Kazuma feels less like a supernatural villain and more like a menacing political force at first, which adds a layer of mystery that the anime sometimes rush past. In addition to that, I would say because maybe of budget reasons or perhaps the visual effects weren't there, it was a little bit more difficult to really show and display the fierceness of the Oni, right? Their teleportation, their powers, and things of that sort. In addition to that, they showed that Chizuru was perhaps not human a lot earlier than they did in the anime. They showed it in the anime with the scene of Kazuma and Hijikata battling on the bridge, and he gets to see her get cut and heal instantly. In the movie, they showed it actually at the Ikidaya end, so the live action series kind of took one from the movie's book. I don't know if that's also the same case in the visual novels. I don't think I've gotten to that point that quickly yet. And to add more onto this point, another thing I will say is that the costumes and designs, I've seen some criticisms that people have made about them wearing wigs and it's not looking too legitimate or real. And again, it's very difficult to kind of replicate anime hair. So I think the additions of the wigs aren't that bad. I actually like them. I think the choices that they made for the actors are actually quite great as well. Like the actor that plays Harada is the tallest one, which obviously is an accurate representation of Harada. In addition to that, they really do touch quickly on Soji's tuberculosis diagnosis, which I thought was interesting. Now let's get to episode 4 and 5, which is kind of like the fall of San and San. Episode 4 and 5 shift to the focus of the internal decay of the Shinsengumi. We see the arrival of Ito, and the drama does a fantastic job showing the friction between his political ambition and the Shinsengumi's traditional loyalty. The real heartbreaker here is San and San, watching him struggle with this useless arm and eventually drinking the water of life. It is much more haunting in live action. When he transforms in episode 5, the horror is like palpable. We also get the hint of Chizuru's own power when she heals a wound instantly, setting up the demon reveal perfectly. I will say the toning and the pacing leans heavily into the supernatural and romance early on for the 2010 anime, whereas the 2022 drama is a historical drama first and a supernatural romance second. It spends more time on the political climate of the Bakumatsu era, which makes the eventual downfall of the Shinsengumi feel even more tragic because you understand the world they are losing. The fury, the animations allow for glowing red eyes and vampire speed to look cool. And the drama, the furies are treated more like medical horror. The makeup is unsettling, making the water of life feel like a true curse rather than just a power-up. And I will say the design for the water of life in this live-action show is basically identical to the one in the anime. Now, with all this being said, what I would say is that if you're a fan of Hakuouki, and again, this is just a review of the first 5 episodes. I'm going to finish up this series and then make another review. If you're a fan of Hakuouki, it is still very much worth giving a shot. However, if you're interested in the romance elements or you want to see that, I feel like this show kind of glances by that, this live action drama. And also, I will say the camaraderie of the men is just not as powerful as it is in the anime. The anime does a very wonderful job of having a event, a little bit of passive time and filler, but this filler is useful because it creates the bond. It shows moments of them walking in Edo with Chizuru, and they have their little banter and they drink sake, and we get to see more story building and world building and so on, that I just think this live action doesn't really focus on. And maybe it's because of a time crunch, maybe they didn't have as many episodes, but that element that makes the Hakuouki anime and the story so beautiful to so many fans like myself, it's not really there. However, putting this off to the side, this is still a very great show. I'm very much appealed by it, the visual aesthetics, the fights, the interactions between Hijikata and the political kind of elements going on. Now, if you want a fast-paced, romantic, supernatural epic, the anime is still king. But if you want a grounded, high-stakes look at the Shinsengumi with some genuinely creepy horror elements, the 2022 series is a must-watch. And I would say it is truly worth watching. Now, I want to ask you guys this question for those that have seen it. What do you think about it? What are your criticisms and your compliments about this show? I'm very much intrigued to watch it. In addition to that, be on the lookout of my part 2 review, and also be on the lookout for further content. I've recently gotten a surge of inspiration to want to make content again, and so you should be seeing a lot more of that. And with that being said, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel if you're interested, and stay tuned for more videos.